For more than 3 years, Dee Warner's family searched for her, knowing she would never willingly abandon her children, her businesses, or the life she had built in rural Michigan. Her husband, Dale Warner, offered a different explanation. Dee had become upset, he said. She had taken some belongings and simply walked away. But in August 2024, investigators returned to another property owned by Dale and focused their attention on a barn. Inside stood an unused anhydrous ammonia tank. Handwritten warnings on its exterior read, "Out of service" and "Do not fill." Investigators also discovered that the tank appeared to have been cut open and sealed shut again. What they found inside destroyed the story that Dee had voluntarily disappeared. The remains concealed within the tank belonged to her. By then, Dale had already been charged with her murder. Authorities had taken the unusual step of building a case against him before Dee's body had ever been found. The discovery answered one question. Dee had never walked away. But it raised another. How had her remains remained hidden on her husband's property for more than 3 years? And what finally led investigators to that tank? Long before her name became attached to a missing person investigation, Dee Warner was known as someone who rarely stood still. At 52, she had built a life around work, family, and the demands of several businesses in rural Lenawee County, Michigan. She was the mother of 4 adult children from her first marriage and had a younger daughter with her second husband, Dale Warner. Her adult children remained closely connected to her. One daughter lived only about half a mile from the Warner property, and Dee was also an involved grandmother. She helped care for her grandchildren, stayed in regular contact with her family, and was known for responding quickly whenever one of her children called or sent a message. Work occupied another major part of her life. From their rural property, Dee and Dale operated 3 principal businesses: a crop farming operation, a chemical company that sold fertilizer and seed, and a trucking company with approximately 15 employees. Although the businesses were connected, Dee played a particularly active role in the trucking operation. Her son, Zach, who managed the company's finances, later explained that she essentially ran the office across all 3 businesses. But Dee referred to the trucking company as her business. It was also the strongest of the 3. Former employees described Dee as tough, generous, and hardworking. She expected people to do their jobs and was not afraid to say exactly what she thought. In a male-dominated agricultural environment, that forceful personality helped her manage employees, finances, schedules, and the daily problems that came with keeping several businesses operating. Those closest to Dee also knew a warmer side. She could be funny, affectionate, and deeply committed to the people she loved. She was a familiar presence in the lives of her children and grandchildren. Her routines were established. Her employees knew when to expect her, and her family knew how quickly she normally answered her phone. She was rooted there. That made the problems developing inside her marriage even more significant. By 2021, Dee and Dale's relationship had been deteriorating for some time. Their disagreements extended beyond ordinary arguments between spouses. Money, employees, and business decisions repeatedly created conflict. The companies that connected their lives also made the possibility of separation far more complicated. Messages later presented in court revealed that Dee no longer believed she and Dale were functioning as a married couple. She described a relationship in which communication had broken down and they had become more like roommates. She had begun speaking seriously about divorce, moving out, and determining what would happen to the businesses they had built together. There were also signs of deep mistrust. Years before Dee disappeared, a tracking device was discovered on one of her vehicles. Witnesses later recalled that she reacted with anger when she learned what it was. Trial testimony would eventually describe a wider pattern of surveillance involving vehicle location services, tracking devices, and cameras. Between January 2020 and April 2021, more than 2,100 remote commands were sent to Dee's Escalade. Many of them were requests for the vehicle's location. Before we continue, this case raises an important issue that appears in many of the true crime stories we cover. Controlling behavior does not always begin with physical violence. It can appear through constant monitoring, location tracking, financial control, manipulation, and the belief that one person has the right to control another's choices. That is why I created the Red Flags and Safety Clarity Toolkit, a practical guide to recognizing patterns of control, obsession, manipulation, and escalating behavior before they are dismissed or normalized. You will find the link in the description and pinned comment. Now back to Dee's story. The full importance of that digital pattern would not become clear until much later. For Dee, the immediate problem was deeply personal. She appeared capable and commanding at work. Yet privately, she was approaching the end of a marriage she no longer believed could continue. Leaving would not mean ending one relationship alone. It would force difficult decisions about property, money, ownership, and the future of 3 interconnected businesses. By late April 2021, Dee was no longer speaking only in vague terms about being unhappy. According to testimony later presented in court, she said she wanted to end the marriage and sell the businesses. That evening, she intended to address those decisions with Dale. By the following morning, no one in her family could reach her. On the evening of Saturday, April 24th, 2021, Dee Warner remained at the family home on Munger Road in Franklin Township. A dispute involving employees and the trucking company had pushed tensions inside the marriage closer to a breaking point. Dee had told family members that she wanted to address both the marriage and the future of the businesses with Dale. She remained in contact with an employee as the dispute continued. Then the messages stopped. The employee received no further response from her. Dee and Dale's 9-year-old daughter was spending the night with a family friend. Testimony later indicated that the arrangement had been made so the child would not be present while Dee and Dale had what was expected to be a difficult conversation. That was the last night Dee's family knew she was alive. The following morning, Sunday, April 25th, Dee's daughter Rickle Bach went to the property for their usual Sunday breakfast. Rickle lived about half a mile away. Seeing her mother that morning was part of an established family routine. But when she arrived, Dee was nowhere to be found. Both of Dee's vehicles were still on the property. Calls went unanswered. Messages received no response. At first, her family did not know what to make of her absence. Dee managed employees, handled business matters, and remained closely connected to her children. Her younger daughter was also away from home, making it difficult for relatives to believe Dee would leave without contacting her or arranging to collect her. Dale offered an explanation. He told a responding deputy that he had last seen Dee early that morning, asleep on the couch. According to Dale, he began his farm work at approximately 6 o'clock while she was still sleeping. By the time her children arrived, she was gone. Dale did not initially present the situation as an emergency. He said Dee had been upset following an argument involving employees and the possible sale of their businesses. He suggested that someone may have picked her up and that she would return after she had calmed down. He also pointed to several belongings he believed were missing. According to Dale, Dee had taken an overnight bag, a curling iron, makeup items, her purse, and her phone. He also claimed that she possessed a second phone, although he could not provide the responding deputy with a number for it. No confirmed communication from Dee followed. Her wedding ring had been left on a desk in the business office. On the surface, the missing belongings and abandoned ring appeared to support a simple explanation. Dee had become angry, packed a few things, removed her ring, and left temporarily. Her children did not believe it. They knew how Dee lived. They knew how quickly she normally answered her phone. They knew how involved she remained in the businesses. Most importantly, they knew the strength of her connection to her children and grandchildren. As the hours passed, no one heard from her. Her regular phone, financial, and online activity stopped. No reliable witness reported seeing her elsewhere. Investigators found no verified evidence showing that she had voluntarily left the property. Both of her vehicles remained behind. Dale continued returning to the same explanation. Dee had walked away. In the days that followed, other details began attracting attention, although their significance was not yet fully understood. Because he worked for the family businesses, Dee's son Zach had previously been able to view the property's security cameras through his phone. As the family searched for information about Dee's movements, he discovered that the password had been changed, cutting off his access. When deputies later questioned Dale about the change, he said Zach no longer had the right to view what Dale described as his security system, even though he acknowledged that the businesses still belonged to both him and Dee. During another visit to the property, a deputy found Dale using a hose to wash the floor of a barn. Dale said chemicals had spilled and asked the officers to step outside while he finished cleaning. At that stage, neither the changed password nor the washing of the barn floor established what had happened to Dee. Her family was confronting a more immediate reality. Dee had vanished from the center of a life that depended on her, and the explanation that she had simply chosen to leave did not fit the woman they knew. Her children reported her missing on April 25th. The first searches found no trace of her. But with every hour that passed, Dale's story became more difficult for Dee's family to accept. A woman who managed several businesses, remained deeply connected to her children, and rarely went anywhere without her phone, had disappeared without using either of her vehicles. And the last person known to have been with her continued insisting that she had simply walked away. From the beginning, Dee Warner's family rejected the idea that she had chosen to disappear. As one day became several, there was still no call, no message, and no confirmed sighting suggesting that Dee had begun a life somewhere else. The search expanded quickly. The Lenawee County Sheriff's Office searched the Warner home, farm, and surrounding land. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, Michigan State Police, Michigan Department of Natural Resources, and other agencies assisted. Search teams used dogs, drones, sonar, ground-penetrating radar, excavation equipment, and other methods. Over time, investigators examined thousands of acres of farmland and multiple properties connected to the Warner family and businesses. Family members, friends, and volunteers also searched, but every effort produced the same result: no trace of Dee. Her family did not interpret those unsuccessful searches as evidence that she had left voluntarily. They believed investigators simply had not found the right place. To keep Dee's name in public view, her relatives and supporters organized a campaign around a simple message: justice for Dee. The words appeared on signs, banners, and billboards throughout Lenawee County. Her family held vigils, spoke with reporters, distributed information, organized searches, and offered a reward for answers. In and around Tipton, the campaign became difficult to ignore. As the months passed without an arrest, Dee's family continued challenging the claim that she had packed a few belongings and abandoned everyone in her life. Investigators tested that explanation against the records people normally create simply by continuing to live. They reviewed telephone, financial, medical, prescription, and social media activity. They examined vehicles, possible contacts, and every available indication that Dee might have traveled elsewhere or established a new life. They found nothing. After April 24, 2021, Dee's normal pattern of activity stopped. She did not contact her children. She did not return to her businesses. No reliable financial, medical, or digital trail showed her living anywhere else. Each empty search created the same problem for Dale's explanation. If Dee had walked away, she had somehow continued her life without leaving any of the ordinary evidence that she was still alive. More than a year after she disappeared, the investigation changed hands. On August 9, 2022, Michigan State Police formally assumed control of the case from the Lenawee County Sheriff's Office. State Police and the Federal Bureau of Investigation had already assisted with searches, but the transfer placed the investigation under new leadership and allowed the evidence, interviews, and timeline to be reviewed again. Dee's family had pushed for the change. They believed a larger agency could bring additional experience and resources to a case that had become increasingly difficult. New searches followed. In May 2023, Michigan State Police executed warrants at multiple locations in Lenawee County. Investigators used excavators and cadaver dogs to examine sections of land connected to the Warner properties. Once again, they did not find Dee, but by then, the evidence was no longer being evaluated as an ordinary missing person case. The complete absence of activity after April 2021 had become central to a potential homicide investigation without a recovered body, a confirmed crime scene, or an eyewitness to the killing. Suspicion alone would not be enough. Authorities had to establish that Dee was dead, that she had not left voluntarily, and that the available evidence pointed toward the person responsible. On November 21, 2023, Michigan State Police announced that Dale Warner had been arrested. The following day, he was arraigned on charges of open murder and tampering with evidence. Dee's remains had still not been found. The arrest marked a major turning point. After more than 2.5 years, authorities were prepared to move forward with a no-body homicide case built from witness accounts, digital records, surveillance footage, Dale's statements, and the complete absence of evidence that Dee remained alive. The legal case advanced while the physical search continued. On March 11, 2024, following proceedings pursued by her family, a Lenawee County court legally declared Dee dead. Then on June 7th, the judge overseeing Dale's preliminary examination ruled that prosecutors had presented sufficient evidence for the murder case to proceed to trial. But the ruling did not answer the question that had haunted Dee's family from the beginning. Where was she? Investigators kept looking. The breakthrough came when they returned to digital evidence and surveillance footage from the Warner farm. Investigators found that on May 5, 2021, shortly after Dee disappeared, a device linked to Dale had been used to search for information about what to do with a 1,000-gallon propane tank. They compared that search with surveillance footage recorded on April 25th, the morning Dee's family realized she was missing. The footage showed Dale gathering welding equipment and moving around the farm. Investigators began looking more closely at the agricultural tanks connected to the Warner properties, particularly any tank that appeared to have been cut open and welded shut again. Family recollections also took on new significance. Dee's brother, Greg Hardy, remembered seeing Dale handling and painting an older tank after Dee disappeared. What had once appeared to be ordinary agricultural work now demanded closer examination. The digital search, surveillance footage, and family information gave investigators a more focused direction. Just before we continue, if you appreciate carefully researched true crime documentaries that examine the evidence step by step while keeping the victim at the center of the story, take a moment to like this video and subscribe. Your support helps us continue producing detailed documentaries like this. Now, the investigation was about to enter an entirely new phase. On August 16, 2024, Michigan State Police returned to property connected to Dale Warner along Paragon Road. This was no longer a broad search of fields, buildings, or buried ground. Investigators were examining agricultural tanks, looking specifically for one that appeared to have been opened and sealed again. Inside a barn standing apart from several other containers, they found an unused anhydrous ammonia tank. A handwritten tag attached to it carried two warnings: out of service, bad dip tube, and on the other side, do not fill. One end of the tank also showed something more significant: a weld that did not appear to be part of its original construction. Investigators used imaging equipment, including an X-ray, to examine the interior. Inside, they discovered human remains. Michigan State Police announced the finding publicly on August 18th, more than 3 years after Dee Warner had disappeared. On August 21st, the Jackson County Medical Examiner's Office identified the remains through dental records. They were Dee's. Her death was ruled a homicide. During Dale's trial, the medical examiner testified that the causes of death were strangulation and blunt force trauma. The discovery ended the claim that Dee had voluntarily left her family and begun a new life somewhere else. She had never walked away. Her remains had been concealed on property connected to the husband who had repeatedly suggested that she had simply left. For investigators, finding Dee also provided the physical evidence that had been missing from the case. The tank became central to everything that followed. A welding expert who examined it testified that one end contained an obvious repair weld that was not part of the original factory construction. The expert concluded that the domed end appeared to have been cut away with an angle grinder and later welded back into position. Sections of the repaired weld had also been ground down, apparently to improve its appearance. The weld was not completely sealed. White paint had passed through a gap and left a drip inside the tank, indicating that the exterior had been painted after the repair was completed. Those details matter because the tank had no ordinary opening, large enough for a person to pass through. The prosecution's theory was that someone had cut off one end, placed Dee inside, welded the tank closed, and painted the repaired area so the container would resemble another unused piece of agricultural equipment. The farm's surveillance system gave prosecutors a possible timeline. On April 25, 2021, while Dee's family was beginning to realize she was missing, cameras recorded Dale moving around the farm. Witnesses identified him in footage carrying an angle grinder, a length of chain, cutting materials, and welding equipment. He was also recorded moving farm machinery and handling a welder. The cameras did not cover every part of the property. They did not record Dee's death. They did not show anyone placing her inside the tank. But prosecutors argued that the footage captured Dale collecting the kinds of tools and materials that would have been needed to cut open and reseal the container. Investigators also reconstructed periods when Dale may have been inside the spray barn, the location where prosecutors believed the tank had been altered. Later footage showed a front-end loader leaving that area with a white object partly obscured in its bucket. Minutes afterward, the circular end of a white tank could be seen near the farm's burn pile, where it had not appeared earlier. Body camera footage recorded during a consent search shortly after Dee disappeared added another piece. The video showed Dale and a deputy walking past a white agricultural tank near the burn pile. At the time, the deputy did not consider it suspicious. Tanks were common on the Warner farm and within the family's chemical business. Years later, prosecutors argued that it was the same tank in which Dee's remains were eventually found. They directed the jury's attention to the repaired end visible in the recording. The physical evidence required careful context. A latent fingerprint matching Dale's left middle finger was recovered from a sticker attached to the tank. However, no fingerprint was recovered directly from the non-factory weld itself. Prosecutors did not argue that the fingerprint alone proved Dale had cut or welded the tank. He owned the property, worked around agricultural equipment, and would have had legitimate reasons to touch many of the containers. The fingerprint's significance came from its place within the wider body of evidence. The digital evidence added another layer. Records from the My Cadillac application showed more than 2,100 access requests over approximately 16 months ending in April 2021. Several devices had accessed the application, and multiple devices were used to request the location of Dee's Cadillac. Investigators connected at least one of the phones involved in that activity to Dale. Witness testimony also indicated that Dale had arranged for a separate tracking device to be placed on Dee's Hummer and had involved other people in monitoring her movements. That history complicated the way he presented Dee's disappearance. After she vanished, Dale suggested that she might have left with someone and could be living somewhere else. Yet before her disappearance, testimony and digital records indicated that her vehicles and movements had been monitored repeatedly through applications, tracking devices, and cameras. Prosecutors asked jurors to consider that contradiction. A husband who had repeatedly monitored his wife's movements was now claiming that she had disappeared without leaving him any way to determine where she had gone. Investigators also recovered an internet search made on Dale's iPad in May 2021, shortly after Dee disappeared. The search concerned how to dispose of a 1,000-gallon propane tank. Standing alone, the search proved little. Dale worked in agriculture, where large tanks were common, and the search referred to a propane tank rather than an anhydrous ammonia tank. But investigators placed it beside the surveillance footage, the movement of welding equipment, the family's recollections about the tank, and the altered container found on Paragon Road. Most importantly, Dee's remains were inside that container. The case depended on accumulation. Prosecutors also used the farm footage to reconstruct Dale's movements and compare them with the work he claimed to have been performing that day. Jurors were shown recordings involving the farm's JCB front-end loader, tractors, fieldwork, welding equipment, and Dale's movements between different buildings. The prosecution argued that the timing of those recordings challenged parts of Dale's explanation about where he had been and what work he had been doing. Taken together, the state presented the evidence as one connected sequence. Dee was preparing to leave the marriage. A separation threatened to divide property, affect control of the businesses, and possibly force some of them to be sold. Her movements had been repeatedly monitored. She disappeared while both of her vehicles remained on the property. That same day, Dale was recorded handling cutting and welding equipment. Shortly afterward, his iPad was used to search for information about disposing of a large tank. More than 3 years later, Dee's remains were found inside an agricultural tank that had been cut open, welded shut, and stored on property controlled by Dale. The state presented money, marital collapse, business ownership, and control as overlapping motives. But the defense warned jurors not to transform a collection of suspicious circumstances into proof beyond a reasonable doubt. No eyewitness saw Dale kill Dee. No camera recorded her death or the concealment of her remains. Investigators found no blood in the house, the JCB bucket, or the vehicles that conclusively established where the fatal encounter had occurred. Employees, relatives, and other individuals had access to parts of the farm. People moved through the property on April 25th without reporting that they had seen Dale committing a crime. His attorneys also emphasized that Dale had spoken with investigators, provided electronic devices, and consented to several searches of the property, although access had been restricted or withdrawn at certain points. The defense challenged witness memories, the interpretation of the surveillance footage, and the prosecution's effort to connect ordinary farm tools and agricultural work to a homicide. Its position was straightforward. Dee had been killed, but proving that a homicide had occurred was not the same as proving who had committed it. The jury was not only being asked whether Dale's explanation had been false, it had to decide whether the evidence proved beyond a reasonable doubt that he had killed Dee. And because he had been charged with open murder, jurors also had to determine whether the killing had been planned in advance, or whether the evidence supported a different degree of homicide. On February 12th, 2026, opening statements began in Lenawee County Circuit Court. A jury was asked to examine the complete case against Dale Warner, not as a missing person investigation, but as the murder of Dee Warner and the concealment of her remains. Over the weeks that followed, jurors heard from Dee's children, relatives, friends, and former employees. Deputies described their early encounters with Dale after Dee disappeared. Michigan State Police investigators explained how the inquiry developed, while specialists presented telephone records, vehicle data, surveillance footage, digital evidence, and forensic findings. The medical examiner addressed Dee's cause of death. A welding expert explained how the agricultural tank had been cut open and sealed again. Investigators described the evidence that eventually directed them to the barn on Paragon Road. On February 25th, jurors left the courtroom and visited Warner family property. There, they were able to see parts of the farm, its buildings, and several locations that had appeared repeatedly in photographs and surveillance footage during the trial. After the prosecution rested, the defense called 3 witnesses. Dale did not testify. Before the defense rested, he personally confirmed to the judge that he had decided not to take the witness stand. By the time closing arguments began, both sides agreed on one central fact: Dee had been killed. The dispute was whether the evidence proved beyond a reasonable doubt that Dale was responsible. On March 5th, the case was placed in the hands of the jury. Jurors deliberated for approximately 80 minutes that afternoon. They were expected to continue the following day, but an emergency involving one juror interrupted the process. The court considered replacing the juror with an alternate. After approximately 8.5 hours of deliberation spread across 2 days, the jury reached its decision. Dale Warner was found guilty of second-degree murder. He was also found guilty of tampering with evidence. Because Dale had been charged with open murder, jurors had been permitted to consider first-degree premeditated murder as well as lesser forms of homicide. They did not find him guilty of first-degree murder. Their verdict established that Dale had murdered Dee, but it did not make premeditation the jury's legal finding. Outside the courthouse, Dee's family described the verdict as a long-awaited victory for her. But the verdict could not restore what had been taken. It could not return the years Dee's children and grandchildren had spent without answers. It could not give her youngest daughter back the mother she had lost. And it could not erase the fact that Dee's family had searched for her, while the man responsible continued insisting that she had chosen to leave them. On May 7, 2026, Dale returned to court for sentencing before Judge Michael Olsever. 5 relatives delivered victim impact statements. They described Dee as the foundation of their family and spoke about the damage her death had caused across generations. Her daughter Rickle explained that Dee had been caring for her grandchildren when she disappeared. Other relatives addressed the lasting harm suffered by Dee and Dale's youngest daughter, who had been 9 years old when her mother vanished. The judge sentenced Dale to 375 months, 31 years and 3 months, to 60 years in prison for second-degree murder. For tampering with evidence, he received an additional sentence of 17 months to 10 years. The 2 sentences were ordered to run consecutively. That created a combined term of 32 years and 8 months to 70 years in prison, subject to credit for the time Dale had already served. Reports described him as becoming eligible for parole after approximately 33 years. When given the opportunity to address the court, Dale declined to make a personal statement. In the end, this case should not be remembered only for the place where Dee Warner was found. Dee was a mother, grandmother, daughter, sister, and businesswoman who built her life around family and work. For years, the story was that Dee had walked away from her life. The evidence proved that her life had been taken from her. Let us know what you think about the evidence that ultimately led to Dale Warner's conviction. And if you appreciate carefully researched, victim-centered true crime documentaries built on verified evidence and courtroom records, consider subscribing so you do not miss the next case.